I'm very happy to be part of you. I'm away from the mundane judicial education to the legal education. I personally come to learn from you, Professor Pandey, who is one of the greatest stalwarts in this area. I have yet to define my concepts on criminal law because I still consider myself to be a very novice, very ordinary student of criminal law, but I would love to share my experiences, my basic ideas about I understand criminal law, which may be right or wrong. I would like to approach the problem when I see IPC, I feel, unlike Mr. Pandey, I feel it a very scientific document which has a wonderful methodology adopted, and which I think we can look at it in a more scientific perspective, right? After having defined offences, provided punishment for the offences, there is a provision in the IPC, like section 6, which makes all offences, all definitions, explanations subject to chapter 4. Beyond that, there is also something called partial defences in the IPC, more particularly the defences that we find in section 300. And I would like to approach this problem first, that IPC follows the common law principle, actus non facit reum nisi mensit rea, in its complete totality. You will find in IPC offences which are having internalized actus reus and mens rea, forbidden consequences, which we consider as 3 essential elements of the offence. Then we find certain offences which are mens rea neutral, like kidnapping, where the courts have said that even if an offence is a mens rea neutral, you have to read it consistent with actus non facit reum nisi mensit rea, unless the statute expressly excludes the mens rea, or by necessary implications, looking at the object and subject matter of the offence, mens rea stands excluded. Now, if this is the broad framework, what is the justification for general defences? The justification for general defences is either there is absence of guilty mind because of the incapacity, immaturity, or mistake of fact in good faith, or there is otherwise a justification for an act that is done even though there may be mens rea involved in it. Then what is the justification for partial defences? So that's why I would like to relate the scientific methodology that has been involved in the IPC, which is that, let me take up incapacity. Now, when we talk about insanity, when we talk about involuntary intoxication, we talk about a situation where a person, because of the impairment of the cognitive faculty, he loses the faculty to distinguish between right and wrong. And it is inhuman to punish a person who does not have capacity to form. So therefore, on the basis, because cognitive faculty is impaired, and therefore there is no capacity to form guilty mind, mere act resulting in a forbidden consequence will not make it a criminal offence. That is the first aspect that I just wanted to talk about. Let me, at this very stage, come back to grave and sudden prohibition. Because if insanity is a complete defense, grave and sudden provocation is a partial. And what is the justification of it in the scheme of the IPC? Is because human mind has three faculties: emotion, volition, and cognition. Now, when the cognition is affected, impaired, where a person cannot have the capacity to form a guilty mind, there's a complete exemption from criminal life. But if a person's cognitive faculty is intact, but his emotional and will faculty is impaired, because of grave and sudden provocation, and the act that he does is during the deprivation of the power of self-control. And therefore, we have in the IPC scheme two important concepts about the human mind. One is sanity and second is insanity. Every person is presumed to be a sane person unless he discharges the burden that at the time of doing the act, because of insanity of mind, he was incapable of knowing the nature of the act, or the act was wrong or contrary to law. But when a person's mind is sane, we also have a concept called reasonable man. Every person is a sane person and therefore has to be a reasonable person. Who is this reasonable person? Nobody has seen, at least I have not seen. It's a fiction. It's an imagination of the judges. And he is not a reasonable man in one society, may not be the reasonable man in another society. It's a very, very relative concept. So therefore we have reasonable men of the background of the accused. How do we say reasonable man of the background of the accused? We say you must put yourself in the footsteps of that accused and see how the society to which he belongs would have acted. And therefore we take his traditional values, mannerism of that society, customs, way of life. Ram Bahadur Thapa was the state of Orissa. I am not very sure whether that case, if it comes today, whether it will be treated to be mistake of fact in good faith. Because question in Ram Bahadur Thapa was not whether it was a mistake of fact. Question in Ram Bahadur Thapa was assumed that it was a mistake of fact, but question revolved around the question whether it was bona fide within the meaning of section 52 of the Indian Penal Code. And the court said, put yourself in the reasonable man of his society, uneducated. By temperament, a society is a hot-headed people, always carrying a cookery with them. And when he was in the company of a person who was a garrison engineer, who also believed in ghosts. And therefore, court said, the argument was that he had a torch in his hand, and if it was a dark pitch night where there was a will-o-wisp, he should have at least put the torch and seen whether these are ghosts or they are human beings. There's a question of using the torch would have arisen if he had any doubt in the mind. Therefore, this judgment of Patna High Court, Orissa High Court, Professor K.D. Rao is among the people in Orissa now, so he must be knowing better these things. If Ram Bahadur Thapa comes in the high technology age, the judges are going to accept this as a mistake of fact in good faith. These are issues that people can ponder over, think what I always say, there's a change from the stone age to the technological age, therefore what was good that time may not be good today. But the fact of the matter is, in that society when this question arose, Odisha High Court had no problem in coming to the conclusion that this was a bona fide. And what is bona fide? We say due care and caution. Due care and caution from whom? By the reasonable men of that society. That's why we say grave and sudden provocation. Not your provocation, not my provocation, not Professor Pandit's provocation. Very calm, quiet man, and a very hot-headed person. So you have to see people. You have to take a fair cross-section. Not too hot-tempered, not too cool-tempered. Some people who are in between the two, and then assess the act of the person. Would it be a grave and sudden provocation? I'm reminded of the case that you have in the case material. I think we can take up that at some later point of time. We'll take it up at later point of time. But the point that I was trying to relate, offense, which I am coming to, general defense and partial defense, and what would be the ideal situation than to talk about 300. So we take 300, but we cannot take 300 unless we take up 299. And I will show you how the Supreme Court is this time. I am amazed, sometimes shocked. I am sure that must be the feeling of Professor Pandit also. How do you jump like monkey from one branch to another branch? One of the celebrated cases that we talk on compensation, Gaikwad. I will demonstrate to you how the judge is jumping from one branch to another branch without knowing what he is doing. And this should not go out of this room. There is secret that I am another secret that I am going to talk to you. We had the Delhi Judicial Service examination. And you know, judges should not involve academics in this. Because we have our own way. If a student starts inquiry from 300, academic will say 299 approved. And you can't get out of 299. You can't move to 325 there. But it does not matter with judges, they can start with anything. They can start with 300, go to 299 and then come to 325, give to 323. And I always say, offences against human body is a swing from assault to murder. You look at IPC, don't look at 2013 amendment, because there are many things now. Harassment at workplace, other things. But when we talk about offences against human body, every murder is a culpable homicide. Every culpable homicide is a grievous hurt. Every grievous hurt is a hurt. And every hurt is an assault. But an assault is not a hurt. Hurt is not a grievous hurt. Grievous hurt is not culpable homicide. And every culpable homicide is not murder. So as an academic, if you talk to me 300, I say you can't come out of 299, all doors closed. But judges can move from 300 to assault. And they can go even to the triviality. Triviality is one of the defenses, if you see. But as a serious student of criminal law, I will not allow this to happen. And that happened in Delhi judicial examination. Many people failed and have a complaint. Why did they fail? Because they are teaching criminal law. They are teaching in some law schools, even in Delhi law school, Delhi law faculty. And a great complaint, sir, this year unfair. We did so well. I said, what well did you do? As if you did nothing and you should not teach what you did in your examination to your students. Because that is something which is very fatal. So therefore, first, culpable homicide. And when we go to culpable homicide, we say homicide. And then we say homicide, we say lawful homicide, we say unlawful homicide. And when we come to homicide, then we also find a distinction 304A and 304 Part 2. Alistair Pereira, BMW, Salman Khan, a new opening up in the minds of judges that every road accident is not 304A. I used to give example to my students when I was a young teacher. I used to say, if you move in a fast speed in Chandni Chowk, I did not know every part of Delhi is going to become Chandni Chowk. And Chandni Chowk in turn is going to become a better place. Cannot Place, Defence Colony, anywhere you talk about today, Chandni Chowk of past years. So therefore, illustrations are relative, are confined to a particular point of time. If my students those days say, sir, you were giving these examples, I say I was giving this, I don't give this example now. So the point that I am trying to make is kindly see what I am trying to say. And if I have time, I will relate every exception to section 300 with general details. And show you Macaulay was not a fool. And it is not just because it came his mind, chalo exception 1 ko grave and sudden bana do. Exception 2 ko kar do, what is that? Exceeding the power. Then third is that exceeding right of private defense. Am I right? One of the two, I think 2, 3, just get it. Old age, visa. Then sudden fight, Then you have consent. Now why? As a student of criminal law, I think it is our duty to examine criminal law in this country. If there are general defenses, there are partial defenses, what is the correlationship? That is the question that we must pose to yourself. And what is the 219 and 300? Difference. And if I take you to Gaikwad, I start weeping when I read Sajjan. He is jumping from, starts with 304, no, it starts with exception 4 to section 300. It is applicable. And then he says 304 Part 2 applicable. Independently. If that is applicable and you are not testing it in 4.3 in section 300, how can you go to exception 4? Please be very clear when you are dealing with criminals. Exceptions will apply only when the prosecution discharges its duty, brings the case within the four corners of an offence. If the prosecution fails in its duty, there is no scope for applying the defense, or for that matter applying the defenses under partial defenses under section 300. A very, very important thing that I as a student of criminal law would not, judges, I would not like judges to do that. I always say death is one of the essential elements. Or homicide, because there can be no discussion on homicide if there is no death. And when we say death of a human being. And when we say death, we say death of a living human being. And when we say death, we do not say natural death, we say unnatural. Caused by another human. Therefore, living human being causing the death of a living human in unnatural way. Maybe lawful, maybe unlawful, but all unlawful homicides are not culpable homicides. They can be 304A situation. Homicide by rash or negligent act not amounting to culpable homicide. You see, 304A was brought subsequently. And one of the debates that a student of criminal law always must have in mind, and Father will not disagree with you. I don't know how you always disagree with me. But at least will not greatly disagree with me, because 304A, why did they say? Death by rash or negligent act not amounting to culpable. Because 325 says voluntarily. Voluntarily causing a grievous hurt, and if you read Pereira's case, one of the arguments was that person was charged under 304 part 2 and was also charged under 338. They are self-destructive. Supreme Court had to work very hard to say no, they are not mutually destructive. Because commonality of rash act in 304A, 304 part 2 and 3004, common feature is rashness. But degree of rashness varies. That's why I always say, look at a scale of 10. One to 10. If you have to say life endangering human life, that is what section 308 says, 328. One of the circumstances in which it is a grievous hurt, one is 1 to 7, then it is unable to follow his ordinary pursuit, continues to be in severe bodily pain, 20 common, and then last is endangering human life. Now, endangering human life is not likely to cause where death has taken place. If it is likely to cause death has taken place, it is 299. And if it is more than that, sufficient in the ordinary course of nature, or imminently dangerous in all probabilities, in knowledge. So let us go to 1 to 10. In 304A we say a person knows, knowledge, rashness, advertently, knows that death may result, but hopes that it will not result, but it results because he has not taken due care. It's a celebrated, I am not telling what I am saying, I am saying what Justice Lodha is saying. He refers to Justice Strait. In one of the cases, I think, let me take you to that, if I have that judgment with me, Alistair Pereira. Please let me know when I have to stop. He says, in Express of India, Maybe they are mistake because this is the Mahapada. So therefore, please continue. Idube, Straight J explained the meaning of criminal rashness and criminal negligence in the following verse. Now why I am saying, because the Supreme Court in the next para says, the above meaning of criminal rashness and criminal negligence given by Straight J has been adopted consistently by this court. And what does Straight J say? He says what is rashness. And please, when I say criminal law is scientific formula, I am using name. Explain the meaning of criminal rashness and criminal negligence. Criminal rashness is hazarding a dangerous or wanton act with the knowledge that it is so and that it may cause injury, but without intention to cause it or knowledge that it will probably be caused. The criminality without intention to cause injury or knowledge that the criminality lies in running the risk of doing such act with recklessness or indifference as to the consequences. Criminal negligence is the gross and culpable neglect or failure to exercise that reasonable and proper care or precautions to guard against injury either to the public generally or to injured particular who, with regard to the circumstances out of which the charge has arisen, it was imperative duty of the accused to have it. Now I am using the word may. Death may, knowingly, lacking in care and caution expected of him as a reasonable man. Then I go to voluntarily causing a grievous hurt, or I am talking about endangering human life. I say death is more than may, but less than life. Are you following me? I say possible. So therefore, may possible. So may is 40%, possible is 50%. And let us say likely is 60%. So we say what is the difference between benchmark and 299 is likely. Can't go below that. Am I clear? More people will die, some people will survive. Endangering human life, 50-50. 50% people will die, 50% people will survive. May 40 will die, 60 will survive. Four, five, six. Sufficient to cause death in the ordinary course. Ordinarily, a person must die, but miracles can happen. Some people may survive. Intention to cause death and cause death of a person certain. Gandhiji 1, 2, 3. So 10, let us say 8, let us say 6, let's say 5, let's say 4. 10 includes, 7 includes, 6 includes, 5 includes 3. But 4 is not 5, 5 is not 6, 6 is not 7, 7 is not 10. Any question? May, possible, likely, most likely, certain. That is criminal.